Alright, I know we're all asking the same question. What really happens after you die? Well, personally, I have no idea, but I'm gonna vaguely explain it to you anyway. Some people seem to think they have the afterlife understood pretty well, and what comes after death could be a lot better than what you've currently got going on. Or, it could be a lot worse. In this video, we'll be taking a look at different afterlives that aren't talked about as much, and rank them based on how good they sound. As a disclaimer, this video isn't going to include the majority of major religions just because most of the afterlives are kinda similar, and I feel like it would make for a pretty bland video. It has nothing to do with being anti-religion or anything like that, so keep on believing. Coming in at number 5, we have Reincarnation. To put it simply, reincarnation is the process of beginning a new life after death. There's a whole bunch of religions that believe in it, the majority of which being Indian religions like Hinduism and Buddhism. The Hinduism version of reincarnation is based around karma.
Just remember, Leahy, what comes around is all around.
Don't you mean what's all around comes around, Ricky?
Or more commonly known as merit points. Just think of that Black Mirror episode where that dude rides the bike every day and then does some devious shit. Except if you're religious, you probably want to avoid doing devious shit. You don't want to prevent yourself from getting that sweet after-death lifestyle. So the reason this one's at number 5 is because after reading about it, I decided it's kind of a write-off for me as a religion. Because after making this video, I've got no fucking chance. I'm gonna end up as a slug in Hindu slug hell. To put it simply, it works like this. You live an honest life filled with good intent and actions. It means you have a good future and good afterlife. If you're nice to people, you do good deeds, and obtain as much knowledge as possible, you may come back as Elon Musk. If you're a current League of Legends player with a porn addiction, you might come back as a League of Legends player, forced to push the boulder up the hill another time. The pros of reincarnation are extra lives and true understanding of self. The cons, potential slug life. Now speaking of pushing the boulder up the hill, do you even know why Sisyphus is stuck there for eternity? Trying to complete his never-ending task? At number 4, we're taking a look at Greek mythology and diving into the underworld. The underworld is where everyone that dies ends up. The god Hades is the overseer of everything that happens down here. It's said to be located on the periphery of the earth. That means the outside edge for all you flat earthers. After you pass away, you travel onward. This could be by boat ride or crossing the river Styx. Your first stop is going to be at the 3 judges. These guys are the decision makers, and choose where the dead reside when they enter the underworld. If you lived a heroic lifestyle or you were lucky enough to be born a Nepo baby, then you get to enter Elysium. This place is considered paradise. There's bevies with the boys, it's always hunting season, parties, life's good. But sadly not everybody gets to live this lifestyle. The majority of people that enter the underworld end up in Asphodel. Asphodel is considered a world of complete average. Think of the most mediocre place you can, then envision living in said place. Then imagine waking up and picking weed every day for eternity. Just a cog in the machine, brother. Now for all you evildoers that aren't so lucky to have lived an average Joe Schmo life, the place you'll end up is probably Tartarus, the deepest recess of the underworld. Each individual that commits terrible crimes or offended the gods are sentenced to an eternity of their own special punishment here. This is where the story of Sisyphus comes into play. Being the clever man he was able to feign death not once but twice. Sadly, his escape was not permanent. On his 3rd trip back, Zeus himself decided the only punishment fit for Sisyphus was to roll a giant boulder up a hill, forever, never to reach the top. It could be worse, I guess. But don't worry, it gets better. If you were lucky enough to make it to Elysium in the first place, you have another option. Reincarnation. Going back to Earth to live again without the memory of your past life. If you're successful in making it back to Elysium 3 times, you get to go hang out in the Isle of the Blessed, better known as Super Heaven. This is where the big dogs hang out. Helen of Troy, Achilles, Medea. But honestly, you're probably better off just hanging out in Elysium if you can get there in the first place. It's already way better than Earth, and you have no chance of getting anything worse if you stay there. Coming in at number 3, we have Valhalla. This afterlife is only attainable by warriors, people that devoted their life to Odin and to combat. That means it barely applies to anyone. I wasn't even going to write about it to begin with. But goddamn, reading about it makes me get the masculine urge to destroy my enemies on the battlefield. This is by far the manliest afterlife you can hope to achieve. Women can get there too, but whatever. The understanding of many is that you had to be slain in combat to even have a chance at making it to Valhalla. However, this is not the case. Norse mythology was heavily Christianized due to a shift in worldview around that time. A lot of the writings people have seen about Norse mythology were written hundreds of years after Christianity became a major force in those Norse countries. So long as you were a follower of Odin and had the passion for battle, you had the opportunity to reach Valhalla. Once you pass away, you're greeted by a Valkyrie that leads you from the battlefield straight to the stronghold where hundreds of the strongest men await you, preparing for Ragnarok. Sounds easy enough to achieve, right? Even if you die in battle, you only have a 50% chance of hanging out in the long haul with your boys. The goddess of war Freya has the first choice when it comes to the fallen. If you get chosen by her, you get to spend the rest of eternity within her field, which I am not going to try and pronounce. So what happens if you don't follow Odin then? A life of combat wasn't for you. Do farmers end up in Valhalla? Do they just drift off into nothing? If you don't die a warrior's death, it seems you just end up in hell. No, not that hell. It's not a place of fire and brimstone like some other religion sees it as. It's got chill-ass vibes, dog. You're still eating good. I mean, sure, you don't get to fight in the Norse equivalent of Armageddon, but there's more to the afterlife than that, man. That's pretty much the main reason it's above the other afterlives I've talked about already, because even when it's bad, it's not that bad. Alright, this is where it gets serious. Coming in at number 2, we have Pastafarianism. Okay, so if you didn't know, the central belief of this religion is that an invisible and undetectable flying spaghetti monster created the whole universe, and since you can't see it, you can't prove it's not there, so you should just believe in it. Sounds familiar, right? Pastafarianism is legally recognized as a religion in Poland, New Zealand, and the Netherlands, which is weird because they only have 8 followers. The afterlife is pretty similar to all the other ones. It has the basic concept of heaven and hell. Your childhood dog is there. Your loved ones are there. But you also get an all-access pass to the beer volcano and the stripper factory. Obviously, not everyone is lucky enough to see the big P upstairs. The Pastafarianism hell is pretty much like waking up after a night of partying. Everything was going good. You were hitting it off with a dime at the bar. You're both a few drinks deep. Time passes and you end up going back to your place. At this point, the rest is history, right? When you wake up, you realize that dime you went home with actually turned out to be a nickel. Whatever, you say to yourself. And that's the same thing I'd say about Pastafarian hell. There's still beer and strippers, but it's just, meh. Instead of Blue Moon, you're getting Coors Light. Instead of Natalie Dormer, you're getting Natalie Portman. Still 2 dubs. All in all, it's pretty damn good, but nowhere near as good as atheism. Atheism, as most of you know, is the belief of believing in nothing. Everything as far as an afterlife goes is just you, sinking into an endless void that you've been longing for as far back as you can remember. At the end of the day, none of this really matters. You're just a tiny speck on the universe's timeline. No one, not even Joe Rogan, has any idea what will happen next, so try not to worry about it too much. Just enjoy today.